A lot of former salespeople will tell you the best way to get a good deal on a vehicle is to educate yourself on the car buying process before you go to the dealership. In fact, a lot of those former salespeople now have YouTube channels where they show you how to get the best deals. In fact, here's one. It's Rodney Samuels TV. In one of his videos, he shows you the four square technique. That four square is on that sheet of paper that the salespeople slide across the table to you.
And so I told Nancy that at the time, Brad was no longer living in his mom's house. He was living in a drug motel, one of these seedy motels.
Next on Fox 13, President Joe Biden announces he will not seek re-election.
Here's an 18-wheeler right in front of us. Take a look at that. That's how close we are to these vehicles. Things seem to be relatively peaceful, with the exception of we shut down an interstate.
Nancy tells me we're going to meet at the restaurant right next to Brad's hotel. I get there, it's Nancy Grace, but Nancy looks a little different. She's not the Nancy that you see on television. She has her shades on, she has her Ugg boots on, and so she's in a bit of a disguise.
As you can see here, there are outlets here that are editing video here on the bridge as the chants go on.
Thanks for staying up with us tonight. I'm Daniel Wilkerson. Arkansas State Police confirming with Fox 13 News they are now investigating the man's death. Fox 13's Jeremy Pierre explains how this family says they saw their loved one just hours before deputies found him dead in his cell in the Crittenden County Jail. But I want to show you this as well. Now, it will be rocky, and I'm going to turn my back to the camera as we walk through here, but I want to show you just how big of a scene this is. Police have it all blocked off. We're going to run through some bushes here, and when we come out to the clear, you can see this is where all the other media outlets are gathering.
See, there's nowhere to walk here. So if those cars had just continued up this way at full speed, if you look up, there are no lights on the old bridge. This could have been really, really bad.
Man, I remember those heavy bags, man. I would go home with all my big books in there. I wouldn't do much with them once I got to the house, but I remember it well.
There's the problem right there.
It's all clear now, right?
You just carried them around. They're just for show. I get it. This makes sense. All right. Well,
the lady takes my license. She makes a copy of it. She takes Nancy's license, and she looks at it, and she says, Nancy Grace. And so our cover was blown a little bit. We quiet the woman down, and I walk to Brad's hotel room. Brad opens the door. We walk in. I tell Brad, this is Nancy Grace. If Nancy had shown up at my hotel room, it would be startling to me. He wasn't startled at all.
Brad freaks out, making a frantic call to CBS 46, insisting he's been framed.
You're trying to say that someone planted the body there?
Well, I didn't put it there. I mean, well, I don't know how it would get there. It was a big door.
And reporter Daniel Wilkerson from our Atlanta affiliate CBS 46 is with us now. Daniel, you were one of the last people to talk to Brad Clement before his arrest. Tell us about that conversation.
Well, it was the day that the K-9s hit in the backyard of that home that he owned back in 2014. I had just gotten off from work, and he called me at home, and he said that an investigator had just come to his house, come to his mother's house, that's where he was living at the time, and had told him about the discovery. The thing that shocked all of us was the investigator left. They did not make an arrest that day.
The cold case unit there got a lot of help from community members. Do we know exactly how they were tipped off that a body might be at that home?
It was actually Team Chase. They were comprised of people who were friends of Chase's mother, along with veterans who had served in Iraq with Chase. They got a private K-9 unit. They got the permission from the district attorney's cold case unit. And I tell you, I was there when those dogs hit. One hit, and then they brought another independently, and that second dog hit in the exact place where they would eventually find Chase's body.
One of the most confusing parts, Daniel, of all this is what would be the motive here?
Well, police have never said that they believe Chase was murdered. Remember, Brad Clement is simply charged with concealing a death. They said there's no doubt that something went terribly wrong the night of the 26th, and they believe that Brad Clement just freaked out and buried Chase's body. That four square is broken up into four sections: your trade-in, the MSRP or the dealership's asking price, the money you'll put down, and the monthly payment. The salesperson wants you to focus on the last one.
Which one of these numbers right here, this monthly payment, is comfortable for you? Now, this is where we all fall victim, right? And it's our own thinking, it's our own lack of knowledge, I want to say. A lot of us are monthly payment buyers.
But Samuel says you should really focus on the first two squares.
The real problem is up here with your trade-in and the MSRP. They want you concentrating on this, because that's where we all train to concentrate on, the monthly payment and money down out of pocket. But up here is where you're getting jerked around.
Samuel says your priority in negotiation should be to get the price you pay for the car as low as possible, and be sure it's the out-the-door price to avoid unnecessary fees. Only after that should you worry about the trade-in. And that's where Daniel Irwin with the Mid-South Better Business Bureau says your homework comes in. How do you know what the car you're trading in is worth?
Well, there are a lot of good websites out there. One's called Edmunds.com. You can search by license plate or by make and model of the car, and it'll give you an estimated value of what your car's worth, so you can have that when you go into a dealership.
Irwin says to negotiate your best deal, you really need to visit more than one car lot and negotiate your best out-the-door sales price. You can use the offer from one dealership to get an even better deal at another. Car dealerships often want you to concentrate on the monthly payment.
Yeah, and that's because they make more money the more the interest rate is, but know what it is you're about to pay. There's a great website called nerdwallet.com. It's got an auto loan calculator. I recommend you crunch all the numbers yourself before you go to a dealership.
So here's your homework before you head to any car lot. Compare the price of the car you're interested in against others online. Know your trade-in value. You should also know your current credit score. Also, crunch the numbers on an auto loan calculator so you're not paying extra interest or finance charges. And lastly, get a loan estimate from a bank or credit union. Remember, you are not required to accept the loan from the car dealership. Once you're at the car dealership and you've done your homework, remember to keep your emotions in check. Remember, for that hour that you're at the dealership, you will likely feel the effects of it for the next 5 years or even longer. Also, use your homework to negotiate the best out-the-door price and get the most you can get for your trade-in. We have a full resource guide on our website. Just go to fox13memphis.com. Daniel Wilkerson, Fox 13 News. Nancy Little's family members say she was very responsible, and that's why they say even all these years later, the events of that night in 1989 when she went missing still don't make sense. It was a heartbreaking discovery on a stretch of road in South Memphis. A woman 9 months pregnant found dead in the passenger seat of her car.
She was face down in the front, across the floor, with face up, or things face up, and she just literally suffocated. And they said that if they had gotten to her 2 hours sooner, they could have saved the baby, because there was enough oxygen left in her body to save the baby.
Her name, Nancy Little. That dreadful night, October 9th, 1989. And now, on the 34th anniversary of her death, her brother, James Little, who initially offered a $10,000 reward for an arrest in the case, is now offering more.
In fact, that I'm being recorded saying this, I'll stand by this. I'll give them $50,000. No questions asked. If they can give us information that leads to his arrest.
In addition to the enhanced reward, Little now has the help of 2 Memphis podcasters who take on unsolved murders in the Mid-South. The podcast is Riverside Homicide.
I feel like that would have been impossible for that to happen without being noticed.
Right. And we asked the police if they thought she was murdered somewhere else and then put in her car. They said, and I quote, "There is no information or evidence that indicates that Nancy died anywhere else except inside the vehicle that she was found in."
I have nothing but high praise for Jeremy and his sister. And they did this because they said it touched them. And they reached out to me. I saw it as a godsend.
Jeremy and his sister Kelly are those Memphis podcasters. Tell me, why did you guys decide to take on this particular case?
It just struck a nerve. Like, how is this not solved? Who would do something to a pregnant woman who's due to give birth the next week? It really impacted us. And so that was our first case, and it's the one that still haunts us to this day.
Through the family, he says they've gotten to know Nancy Little.
We went to where Nancy lived. We went to her apartment. We timed it. We drove from her apartment to where her car was found, which is about a mile away.
They learned that Little worked at a postal facility on Elvis Presley Boulevard. Little says his sister told him before she died that she had gotten pregnant by a coworker.
So apparently they had been dating or fooling around for some time. She got pregnant and she learned that he was married. And from what we understand is that he wanted her to get rid of the baby, and she wouldn't do that because it was against her religion, it was against our religion, and she wasn't brought up that way.
Little says on that night in 1989, his sister spoke with their mother and told her she was in for the night.
My sister was asphyxiated. What I believe, is that he coaxed her out of her apartment.
Fox 13 previously reported police and the family had their eye on one suspect, but they needed help from the public to make an arrest. In a 2016 interview, now retired Sergeant Joe Stark told us this.
There was some evidence that was left in the car, and we're hoping that today's technology might be able to unwrap that for us as to who it might be.
Again, that was 2016. We reached out to Memphis police for an update on the case, but they said they had no information to pass on. This family is determined to get answers. Little had this message for his sister's killer.
His day is coming one way or another. I want to see it. That's my thing. I want to see him. I want to see him when they get him, lock his ass up, throw the keys away. That's what I want. I don't want him to have a pleasant day ever.
If you have information that might help investigators, the family urges you to call Crime Stoppers at 901-528-CASH. In studio, Daniel Wilkerson, Fox 13 News.
For some reason, when I was sitting in that chair looking at all of this, I was thinking about those booths that you have outside the classroom. Do you still have those now? Yeah. Where they can see, people can see in, but you can't see out. Yeah. Well, my mother, who is here, she's sitting right next to Mrs. Whitney, who was my 6th grade teacher, and of course, Miss Coleman had just started. Well, I would act up at school, and my mom would come up to the school and go into that booth, and I could not see her, but she could see me. And back then, 40-something years ago, parents could spank little children. And I won't say anything to get my mother arrested today, but those booths were not my friends. Let me first be the first to say on behalf of the entire Fox 13 News team, Good Morning Memphis anchors, as well as noon, midday, 5, 6, 9, and 10, congratulations to the class of 2024 of Campus School. One of the things that, if I had to go back, that I probably would redo, I always thought that to be of service to others, meaning to help others, that I had to get to a certain point. I had to get to a certain grade. I had to get to a certain school first, or make a certain amount of money, be in a certain position so I could help a lot of people. But what I didn't realize is we can help people at any stage in the game. You as 5th graders right now, you can help people, right? And you probably do.